So I'd like to introduce today Moniessh, who is at that great age where things happen, where the world is at his feet. And Moniessh is in Moniessh, may I say your age? Is it
Yeah,
okay?
sure, go ahead.
All right, Moniessh is just 20 years old, and I'll let him tell you his story. I think Monish shared with me that initially he wasn't very good at his studies, but he had a little wake up call. He has been helping young people become better at the IGCSEs, and I've seen Monish help the hopeless cases to become more hopeful and then actually to become A students. Okay, so Monish, take it from here.
Hey Diane, thank you very much for that introduction. So my name is Monish. I am the founder of XLR8 Mentorship. And what we do is basically we help struggling students in private schools, international schools, all over the world, take charge of their own education, right? And once they take charge of their own education, results, good grades actually just become an outcome of effort, right? And we also equip students with foundational skills, such as learning how to actually revise properly and study, and how to approach exams. Because learning how to actually study is a skill that you can use for life, right? You only learn it once, and you can use it forever. You can use it for your GCSEs, you can use it for your A levels, IBDP, and you can also use it for your university and masters, PhD, whatever you do later on in your life that's related to academics. Learning how to study will actually benefit you in the long run, right? So the reason, I'll just go back in time a little bit. I started this company about a year ago, January 2025. And the reason for my company being born is because I always had this thing where I really love to help kids who are struggling in something, right? It doesn't have to be academics. I just love to help people who are younger than me. It doesn't have to be academics, like I said. It can be anything else, right? It's like coaching them in skills, um, coaching them how to play sports, just anything. I just love coaching kids and helping kids. And one of my childhood dreams was to become a pediatrician, but that did not happen. So
It
this
still
this
can.
this is the alternative. But life happens for a reason, so I'm not complaining. And yeah, so going back in time a little bit, when I was in high school, when I was doing my GCSEs, I was actually just like every other student out there. I was 15, I was 16, my apathy was really high, and I just wanted to enjoy. I didn't really want to study. I was 15, 16. I love playing sports. I love seeing my friends. So I didn't really see a point in all of this. And things actually became serious when my grade 10 exams came around. So towards the end of grade 10, I actually ended up failing most of my subjects. And that is a big problem because my real GCSEs or IGCSEs was just about 12 months away, right? And when I say failed, I scored a grade U in one of my subjects. So, what is a grade U if you ask? A grade U is a grade that is lower than an F. Yeah. So, if you think that you can't go lower than an F, yes, you absolutely can. A grade U basically means ungraded, right? Anything below 30% is a grade U. And I scored that for my additional mathematics. And it started to create like a ripple effect. So I started doing bad in every other subject as well: sciences, in languages, humanities, math, and everything just started to take a tank. And I just went down and down and down, and it got so bad until my school sent an email to my parents saying, "Hey, your child should probably drop at maths and rethink his academics because." My real GCSEs were 12 months away. I mean, to be fair, failing in your most of your subjects and wanting to score the complete opposite. I always had big dreams for myself. I wanted to score all A's. So when I was in grade 10, I was at a point where I failed everything. So going from that to scoring all A's within a year is mission impossible. I mean, the school thought it was mission impossible. I thought it was mission impossible, right? I mean, it was mission impossible. So the school really told me to rethink things. And, my parents being Asian parents, to say the least, they were disappointed. And I was really all alone. I've had tutors, and no one really helped because all of these tutors, all they taught me was content, right? Subject content. They never really taught me why am I learning these things. They never really told me the why behind what I'm learning, and they never really showed me how to study and how to take exams and things like that. So I had to figure it out. Figure all of this out by myself, and I did it in a very small room in my apartment where I just put all my textbooks out. find similarities and see, okay, what's the my best action? What's the best play that I can make to move forward? And along the way, I actually learned how to study. I learned how to take exams. I genuinely had to learn everything from scratch. I wanted to like create a system where every time I go sit down, I know exactly what to do. I don't waste time thinking, okay, what do I do next? What do I do next? Right? I love things to be. I'm a checklist kind of person, right? I just want one checklist, one system to see, okay, I need to do this, this, this in order to score this, right? If I want to score A's, what do I have to do in order to score A's? I just go backwards from that, right? So that's what I did for like a year. And thankfully, my little experiment that I carried out in my room worked out. I figured out how to study. I learned all of these study techniques from scratch. I figured out how to take exams, how to stay calm under pressure. And on top of that, I also learned the content. Now, keep in mind, I only learned the content, meaning the subject content, like the syllabus, really fast in a short amount of time because I learned how to study first, right? So once I failed everything, I did not go and, okay, I need to revise all the topics. That's not what I did. I fixed my foundational problem first. So I actually figured out how to study, how to revise, what techniques to use, just to say some, the Feynman technique, active recall, spaced repetition, and things like that. So what techniques to use and when to use them, and how to take exams, right? How to stay calm under pressure because you're under a time limit when you do real exams. So I had to settle that first before going into the content. Now, thankfully, I did it that way because once that is settled, I really kind of accelerated my learning when it came to learning content. And all of this happened within the span of 12 months. And I took my GCSEs in year 11. My results came out in like 3 to 4 months later. And I ended up going from U's, F's, D's, and E's to 5 A stars, 8 A's and A stars within the span of 12 months. So, yeah, that's
And
my story.
excellent, excellent. That's a wonderful, motivating story for any young person, especially those that are getting Fs and below. It's not the end of the world. If you're a mommy or a daddy, it's not the end of the world.
Definitely.
There's Monish, and there is also finding out how best to work. Now, Monish has been helping many young people in his program. But before we go into talking about his systems and the outcomes that he's been having, tell me, Monish, what has caused you to want to work with other students? What makes you want to help other students? I know you're a busy man. You've been very busy. And is there a point in this helping? Was there a point where you realized that it was not just about academics, that perhaps there are deeper things influencing how a young person does at school?
So whenever I see a struggling 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old, I always think to myself, when I say struggling, I mean academics, right? They're struggling in their academics, they're struggling with their studies, GCSEs, or they just don't want to study in general, right? They can't be asked to bring themselves towards, actually studying and scoring good grades on themselves. Kids who just don't want to study, they aren't interested in education at all. Well, keep in mind, I was once 14, 15, 16, 17 years old. So I understand what they're going through. I really understand their point of view, right? Because I was once that person. And from there I've evolved into, not being that person, right? So whenever I see these kids, I know exactly what to do because I've been there once, right? It's usually a case of they have every child is unique and every child has a different why to, what they want to achieve, right? Everyone has their reasons and when they do what they want to do. So kids are the same as well. You got to find out their real reason on why they actually want to, what do they actually want in life, and what do they actually have to do in order to get there. Right? Yes, there are scenarios where some kids, are much.
So you're saying, uh,
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah. So you're saying that actually, for many kids, it's more than just academics. That there are some deeper issues that are at play when a child is not doing well at school.
Definitely, yeah, definitely. Sometimes, yeah, there are many reasons actually from what I've experienced. I've spoken to about hundreds of parents at this point. So there are so many reasons. It can be family reasons, things going on at home, and that can be root cause of siblings. They had older siblings in school who just didn't perform well, and then they don't have the drive of, okay, why do I have to perform? There are also situations where kids come from different family backgrounds, And some kids are like, okay, you know what, I don't have to do this because I've I'm taken care of and things like that. So yeah, there are so many issues when it comes to finding out the real reason why kids do not want to actually study and why kids aren't interested. I just think that every kid is unique, and you really have to have a heart to heart to them with them in order to figure out what's going on and where the problem is, and work from there.
And yes, I agree. I agree that many things can affect how we perform, not just school, work as well, many things
Definitely.
at home, and even, your own attitude, your own mindset affects how you perform at work. So children are no exception, right? When you first meet a student, do you look for signs? What are some signs that will show you whether this child will be able to achieve A results or hopeless case?
Right. So the first thing is curiosity, right? Most children who turn out to be top learners and end up in some of the best universities in the world are often very curious on why an answer is such, right? If they're learning biology, for example, and they found out the definition of mitochondria, they are often top performers are usually like, okay, why is that? Powerhouse, okay, mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, powerhouse of the cell. Why is it the powerhouse of the cell? What's the relation between cells and mitochondria? And they try to form as many cross connections between the concepts they learn, right? That's number one, curiosity. Number two is consistency, right? You see them making an active effort in order to attempt questions, right? Whenever they get homework or whenever they get practice sets or just any form of practice in general, they are always consistent with it. Now, when I say consistent, I don't mean that no, they study 1 hour every single day for like a year straight. No, because consistency can be like 2 hours on Monday, 1 hour on Thursday, 3 hours on Friday. And then the next week, it can be 2 hours on Tuesday, 4 hours on Saturday, right? They keep doing something. They don't stop, right? They don't quit. And when you don't quit, it's very hard to lose, right? So these guys, these kind of students, they just keep going on, right? They try little by little every single week. And the best part of this, it's a compounding effect, right? If you do practice every week, it just compounds. And when it comes to exams, whatever you learned, you can just apply it, and that's how you score good grades, right? So number one, curiosity. Number two, consistency. And number three, which is often overlooked, is the ability for students to, for them to not care about looking stupid in class. And what I mean by that is if they do not understand a certain concept, they are usually the first to raise their hands and be like, hey, teacher, what do you mean by that? Could you give me an example? What do you mean by this? I don't understand it. Could you repeat it again? These students are not afraid to made fun of by their peers, because usually when you raise your hand in class, you get made fun of. So, top performers, they don't really care, right? All they care about is, whether they understood the information or not. So they're not afraid to ask questions. They're not afraid to see the teacher after after class and things like that. So yeah, these are usually the signs of top performers. I've seen students who became performers closer to towards the exam, right? So they were just normal performers, average performers all along. They were the bad students. But when I say bad students, I mean like in terms of academic performance, they just weren't there. They weren't performing to a high level. But when it came towards exam, that last minute pressure kind of like changed them, right? Just changed them completely. And for the rest of their lives, they just become that version. So, which is, there's so many ways that students can become top performers. But if you're asking me, if you're asking like over a longer time horizon, curiosity, consistency, and not being afraid to ask questions in class, right? These are usually the best predictors of whether a student is going to be a top performer for a very long time.
I couldn't agree more. Even with my own students in university, the ones that ask questions the most, even though some of the questions may not be the most intelligent questions, they do score in the A's. Actually, they
Exactly.
do. So you are absolutely right there. How about signals that are on the other side? They look harmless early on, but then later on they compound and they cause bad results. Anything that we should be looking out for?
So the signs of, the early warning signs can be students, only studying and only revising, or, only changing their attitude when they are told to do so, right? A very common example is when parents start to nag and yell. Okay, I won't say yell, but like, try to apply pressure on their child. That is when they start taking things seriously, right? Until then, they're just relaxing and they're chilling and they don't see the, they're not reminded of the urgency that's needed, right? That's one of the early warning signs. Secondly, not doing homework, right? This is actually a huge problem because it's more towards discipline, right? Like doing homework is more of a discipline thing, although it's a consistency thing as well. It's also a discipline thing, right? Doing homework and getting your homework completed and submitting it on time is very good, right? It means that you are sharp on what you do and your discipline is strong. Another warning sign can be students only focusing on memorization, right? They don't want to learn the content, they just want to get away with memorizing. Well, yes, to an extent, you can get away with memorizing, but it just takes up so much mental bandwidth that, you will underperform in other subjects, right? When it comes to memorizing, you can memorize for sciences and get away with it, especially biology. But the amount of mental, space that takes in your head is a lot, and you won't really have, that bandwidth to go and, perform well in other subjects such as mathematics and humanities. So yeah, the three warning signs would be always memorizing all the time, not doing homework, and only taking action when being told to do so.
Yes, that would mean that the student is not taking responsibility for their own work and waiting for people to push them or elevate them or,
Exactly, yeah,
show them up. Yeah. So taking responsibility is very, very important. And
for sure.
not being afraid to ask questions, not being afraid to try new things. I think that's important, as you said before. Yeah. There's also the case of parents trying to help. I think you're very familiar with that with your students, Monish. Parents, sometimes they say their child is lazy. Do you think that they're often right or often wrong?
Well, this really depends, right? A child is lazy simply because they're not driven, right? Like a child isn't lazy when it comes to playing video games, for example, because there's always dopamine, right? When they unlock a certain level or they beat a certain boss or they progress and they unlock new rewards, there's always some form of dopamine. So you don't have to like tell your child to go play video games. They will play video games or they will, or leave video games on one side. Sports, for example, right? You don't have to tell your child to, hey, go out and play football. They want to do it, they love to do it, right? It's passion, right? Because they actually get happiness in doing so. But in academics, it's hard because the rewards are not instant, right? The dopamine is actually much more delayed, right? It's not instant gratification, it's delayed gratification instead. So when you revise, for example, it's not like you are going to, let's say you're revising for biology, it's not like you're guaranteed A's in biology the next day, but you will be guaranteed A's in biology if you study consistently for 3 to 6 months in your actual exams, right? But that's a problem with kids because until for that entire 3 to 6 month period, they don't really get any wins, right? They don't see any wins, they'll be in this constant doubt of like, okay, is what I'm doing even working? Is what I'm revising actually going into my head? What's the point of all of this? And then they quit halfway, right? So they have a period of revising, they quit halfway. So it's not that students are lazy, they're just not, they're just not there's not enough dopamine, right? They are not being rewarded. So I wouldn't say they're lazy. They just can't see the bigger picture, right? I think if we make students see the bigger picture of things, and one of the easiest way to do this is just reverse engineer what they actually want. So if they want A's, why do they want A's? Okay, and we get the reason and we reverse engineer from that. Okay, so in order to get A's, you need to do this every single week for the next X months, right? For the next 3 to 4 months. I think if you do something like that for kids, they will actually see like, oh, okay, right, now I understand what I'm doing. And then now I understand where all my effort is going. And I think that's one way that parents can, try. But yeah, it's not wise to assume that every kid is lazy.
Yes, that is correct. And I like that you use the word dopamine. I think this younger generation is very used to instant dopamine with the games and video games
Social media
and
as well.
also yes, social media and also the parents being very loving to the children. Right? We all want to love our children. So we
Yeah.
also give them lots of dopamine. And I like what you said about reframing dopamine. So that was what you said, to reframe it and have the child manufacture their own dopamine, work towards a goal and then expect extract the dopamine from the goal itself. And that's
Yeah.
a very, very good way to do it.
Yes. And
Parents also
mhm.
always, oh, yes, sorry.
Yeah, and to add to this point as well, one of the new ways that I figured out to create dopamine is actually implementing a point system. So why do kids love video games, right? Because they get points, right? Like they get points and then they can use their points and like redeem it for something. They can buy a new character, or they can, unlock a new like weapon, or they can just do something with those points, right? And it's pretty similar concept to like flying, right? When you fly like business class, for example, you collect points, right? And with these points you can, claim these points or rewards, right? Or with these points, you can claim access to like lounges and, things like that. So I've implemented a system where I've made everything that students need to do in order to get an A into a game, right? So let's say in a week, I'll be like, hey, you need to complete 3 practice papers. And for each practice paper, you get 7 points, right? And and on top of practice papers, they also do things like, okay, you need to show up to your lessons early. You get 2 points for that. You need to do your end of day reviews where you write down what you learned for the day. You get 5 points for that, right? And they do this every week. And at the end of the month, all of these points they collect, I offer them rewards, right? I offer them just small rewards. Like it can be very simple things like um a $300 voucher, for example, or new shoes, or new clothes, or new hoodie, new jacket. It's just something that these kids like, right? A gift card. It feels different when you actually work for something and and you get it, right? When you actually deserve something and you actually get that thing, it's a very different feeling compared to everything being handed to you from scratch, right? So I think that that's been working really well with some of my students. I do implement it with um, only a certain kind of students, because the amount of effort and time it takes for this point system is, it's up there. But it's worth it, because these kids are usually kids who, just don't see the point in education whatsoever. And with these points and reward system, they get interested in education, which is actually a huge shift, right? From uninterested in education to actually caring and talking about future goals. And the way I do this is this point system. And I also tell kids like, hey, if you get A stars for GCSE, if you get A's for GCSE, on top of maintaining points, right? If you have like, for example, 85% points consistency across 4 months, and you get A's for GCSE, I don't mind buying you stuff. I don't mind buying you slightly more expensive things. Like I have a kid, overseas. He he said, he made a deal with me. Okay, I'll get my GCSE I'll get my GCSE grades, but I want this. And I'm like, okay, sure, let's do it, right? If that's a motivation, sure, let's go and do it, right? And he did this program with me. It was 5 weeks where his kind of habits weren't in place, right? He had no academic habits, but we did a program for 5 weeks where he gets points for like waking up early, eating clean breakfast, attending sessions early, working out, and just foundational stuff. And he did it consistently for 5 weeks, and he collected about 400 plus points. And with those points, he actually bought it. He claimed a drone, right? It was a very good drone, and he's gonna get it in like a few days, and he's really happy, right? And that's the foundational side of things. And now he's moving closer towards exam. So when it's towards exam, I'm going to be giving points for completing practice papers and things like that. And obviously, the rewards for getting good grades in like GCSE and A levels will obviously be better and different. But yeah, this is one of the creative ways that I figured out recently. This points and rewards and game system for kids. When they get these points, and when they claim rewards with it, and when they claim these points for rewards, they feel very good. And that's one of the best ways I think I figured out, to get kids from going from uninterested in education to actually caring about their study.
Yeah. I agree. In my days, we had stickers
Oh yeah, yeah, yes, yeah.
and
When I
good
was
work
young, I had stickers
stamps.
too. Yes,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
feels good,
And,
right? It feels good getting a sticker, right? Even
and
something as
those were
small as a
enough.
sticker is nice.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And now people are giving away drones. Oh my gosh, how times have changed. How about parents doing the wrong thing? I'm sure that this is an issue as well. Some parents do things for their children with the best of intentions. But do you have any advice for parents that what might not be the right thing to do?
I think I understand where you're coming from, right? All parents do. They want the best for their child. So whatever they think that needs to be done, or needs to be said, they often go and carry out those things. And sometimes it can actually, you know, do more harm than good. For example, I guess constantly nagging at your child, for example, won't really get them anywhere. Yes, for the short term, it might work. Yes, you will get them to studying for the next 2 days, right? Sure, they will, right? If you give them like a real talk, a deep talk, or if you set things straight with them and things like that, yeah, sure, they'll get motivated for the next 3 days. But trust me, the next week, they're going to go back to their old habits and routines, right? So yeah, I think that some parents take it a bit too far with these things, and and they get surprised, wow, even after all of this, my child is still not performing and things like that. And parents also think that investing in more tuition hours is going to guarantee good grades, which is the biggest myth ever. Because again, like, tuition just teach content. You got to actually, children need to know how to study and how to take exams. But yeah, going back to your question, yeah, constantly nagging all the time can be very bad for your child. It will make them hate and resent education. It'll make them hate and resent what they're doing, and you wouldn't want that, right? The last thing you want is your child to lose interest in academics as a whole, that they actually don't want to ever study because of their bad experience with their parents, because they know that, oh, okay, if I don't study, then this is going to happen, mom and dad are going to do this, and it's not a healthy thing in the long run. So yeah, parents, I think, speaking from experience, I think that you should avoid constantly nagging and with your child and things like that. You should also avoid um, shaming them for bad marks, right? When they get bad marks, it's not there's a reason behind it, right? It's usually a lack of understanding, a lack of theoretical concepts, or just something went wrong somewhere. And I think the most important thing is, instead of shaming, okay, not shaming, but like scolding and shaming and pointing out the fact that, oh my God, you actually got these bad grades. What is going to happen? What is going to happen? Instead of like doing these things, I think it's important to find out the root cause and work towards that goal together. Now, that can be you sitting with your child, or you getting external help and things like that. But let's just talk about external help, right? Other institutions can only help your child if you kind of figure out what the problem is, right? So you have to have this talk with your child, and you got to see where they're going wrong, right? And from there, you go and report it to whatever um, institution or academic consultants there are, and then you tell them, hey, this is going on with my child, do you think you can help me out? But you got to find out what's going on first, and you're not going to find out what's going on if you keep nagging at them, and if you keep blaming them for bad marks and shaming them. So I think, instead of doing those things, just find out the root cause. And finding out the root cause can be as easy as having a talk with your child, having a talk with the school, having a future pacing talk with your child. When I say future pacing, just go like, okay, what do you want? What do you want to have happen? And just go backwards from there, right? And that's usually when you'll see where the core problems are, right? And from there, you take those core problems, and you find a solution towards it. Yeah. So don't nag, don't criticize your child for scoring bad marks. Instead of doing these things, just find out the reason why they are performing like that in the first place, and more often than not, you will find a solution.
Well, there you have it. Advice from a young person, how to handle a young person. Mummies and daddies, I hope you're listening. I do agree, I do, because also in my work, we talk about association. If you associate studying with stress, the child is not going to like studying. And if you associate, like what Monish is advising us, if you associate studying with, well, me giving you support, what support do you need for your studies? And hand in hand, we do it as partners rather than me, the mother, as a judge. That works better, right, Monish?
For sure, for sure. I agree.
Yeah, yeah. Now, some years ago, actually many, many years ago, I did meet a mom with a young child who was very, very advanced for his age. He was at that time maybe about 6, but he had the capabilities of maybe a 7 or 8-year-old. He was very, very good at mathematics and all that. But his mother found out that he was intentionally making mistakes
Okay.
because he wanted to
That's
fit in with
interesting.
his friends, and she was very, very upset. She was upset because she was looking at his test papers. Why is he getting things wrong? And she was a child psychologist herself. So she had a talk and she found out that he was intentionally making mistakes because he wanted to fit in with his friends. So my next question for Monish is this: do you meet many parents who tell you, I'm so sure my child is capable of more. I'm sure I'm not delusional. I'm sure they're capable of more. So why are they not achieving more?
Well, usually capable students underperform or do not perform to their highest level. The reason for this thing happening is because the environment, right? Your environment, I cannot stress this enough. I could talk about this for hours, but your environment is the most important thing, right? Who you choose to hang out with is very, very important. I was very fortunate because I was actually a kid who did not really care about academics and I was just going to school for fun, right? My parents sent me to a private school, international school. I was just like, I was just having fun, right? I mean, it was a new experience to me. So I was just having fun. But I was very fortunate to meet two guys who were I don't know if you'll ever hear this, but I met up with two guys who were very academically inclined, right? They were so smart. And when I one was like super smart, like he was like born smart, and the other one was super hardworking, right? He worked hard for all the results he got. So, I had like the best of both worlds. I came in, it was like a three-person friend group, and I came in the middle and I had the best of both worlds. And I was in such an environment. So when my friend scored 95%, for example, I'll be like, oh my God, I need to beat him for the next test. And I want to score, although I don't end up scoring 95, I end up scoring like somewhere between 85 to 90. It's that mindset I have, okay, I gotta push for more. I gotta push for more, right? Most capable kids actually hang out with the wrong crowd, right? Now, when you hang out with the wrong crowd, um, oftentimes each person in that crowd has a different goal, right? Or more so, five people have the same goal and the other one does not have the same goal. So it's very hard to get connected, right? So what's going to happen, even though you're a capable student, even though you have the potential to score some of the best grades your school has ever seen, if you're in the wrong environment, it doesn't matter, right? You are going to shrink and you will fall into the bad habits of your friends, right? It's very simple. So many parents tell me their kids are capable, and then I'll be like, okay, so who are your kids friends with, right? I think usually they'll be like, okay. So your crowd matters, your child's crowd matters. I mean, in general, right? Who you hang out with is, well, it's very important, right? There's this saying, hang out with four millionaires and you'll become the next one. It's the same thing with academics, right? Hang out with five students. Okay, it doesn't even have to be A students, right? Hang out with five students who are hardworking and genuinely want to score good grades for themselves and for their future, and you will become the next one, right? So, I strongly suggest kids to hang out with the right people. It's very important from the start, and you can find good friends, friends who just want to have fun. You can find people like that, and they can also be the same people who want to score good grades, right? Who actually want to progress in life, right? Back when I was in high school, me and my friends did all kinds of things, right? I mean, we did all kinds of things, but we played sports, we hung out, we did this, we did that. But when it came to academics, we got serious. We did not forget our main goal. So I was very fortunate to be blessed with those kind of friends. And yeah, I would say the same for parents who have capable children. Just make sure your child is hanging out with the right crowd. Advise them. Don't take them out of the friend group because there's nothing like school. There's nothing like school at all. School is just a one-time thing and it's an unforgettable experience. So maybe not force your child to like, okay, don't ever hang out with him again. I don't ever want to see you with him again. Maybe not do that, but kind of tell them like the reasoning, like where you're coming from. Like, look, if you hang out with these people, hey, it's fine, right? But do they really, how are they performing in school? Do they really actually care about their studies? Do they actually have a goal in life, right? Because some kids just don't have a goal and they stay on like that until they're like, 20, 21. So some people just don't have a goal. And the best thing you can do is just not hang out with them. Same thing with children. I'd suggest you help your child find the right crowd from the start. Do not pull them from bad, do not like take them away from the friend group. It's also important to understand that, some things that happen in school will only happen in school, right? Like bunking classes and things like that. Well, yeah, it's terrible, but like every kid has done it. I have done it, and all the laughs and experiences, all the laughs and experiences that came with it was a thing that was a thing that many people cherished, and it's a thing that I cherish as well. You know, so yeah, so just make sure they're hanging out with kids who want to score good grades as well, right? Yes, children can have vices and things like that. I completely understand. I have my fair share of vices too. But I'm always with people who want to be better, who want to progress in life, who want to build the next big thing, who want to make, you know I mean, in my case, generate the most amount of revenue in a year and things like that. So I usually hang out with people like that. That makes sense for me, right? Because I'm trying to grow my business, right? I'm trying to help children, and by growing my business, I so happen to help children as well. So I hang out with people who also want to elevate their business, right? It doesn't have to be with kids. I just want to hang out with people who want to grow, right? I don't want people. I don't like to hang out with people who stagnate. I want to hang out with people who grow. So same thing for your child. Tell them, hey, doesn't matter if this person has bad habits or this person does bad things. It doesn't matter. As long as they want to move forward in life and they have a goal, it's fine. You can be with them. Just hang out with them, right? As long as they have a goal in life, like, oh, okay, there's a test coming up. I need to study for it. If your child's friends are like that, it's completely fine. So yeah, the right crowd and the right environment is very important.
That's very, very good advice. I just want to add something: ethical goals.
Yeah, ethical goals for
Ethical
sure.
goals. Yeah. And I really like what Monish said about helping your child, because you're the parent. So, as parents, we are in the position to help our child find good friends as well. Introduce your children to the type of friends that you want to see them become as well. And that's great. That's helping the child build an environment where they recognize themselves as being part of that environment. I also remember reading many articles about us being the sum or the average of our best five friends, like
Yes,
what you were saying, Monish.
yes, that
So
is true.
that's,
That's very true.
yeah, that can't be understated, right? That's really, really true. Because the child will recognize who they are based on their environment, which brings me to the next question about labels. About labels. It's very easy for people to say, oh, this child is quite smart, or this child not so smart. This one a bit slow. This one has problems here and there. But what we don't realize is those are labels that we give that person who might not be like that, right? So, Monesh, my next question is, when when a young person starts believing things like, I'm smart, or I'm just bad at school, I'm good at other things, but I'm bad at school, I'm not very smart, I'm slow, I take a long time to learn. What actually are the things that accelerates this lock-in, and what can we do to remedy that?
Yeah, so I was actually talking about this in my one of my sessions that I run in my program, mindset sessions on how to have the right mindset and things like that. So we were talking about this thing called the expectation effect, where what you believe often becomes reality, right? And if you believe that you're smart, well, that's good, because you can still ride on that wave of, you can ride on that momentum of like, oh, I'm smart, I'm smart, I'm smart. And when you think you're smart, you will do things that smart people do, right? What do smart people do? Smart people, they manage their time properly. I guess in the context of students and academics, if a student thinks, hey, I'm smart, then they will, you know, subconsciously try to do things which are associated with smart students. Smart students don't go to sleep late. Smart students complete their homework on time. You know, smart and hardworking students do a lot of past year papers, practice papers. Smart and hardworking students are consistent. So if your child believes that they're smart, or if a student believes that they're smart, that's good. Leave it. Okay, let's leave it. Although on the back end, maybe they're not scoring, marks that that is deserving of them to be called smart. Just let it be, right? As long as they keep up that momentum of, like, if they think that, hey, I'm smart, okay, it's fine. Okay, they will subconsciously try to do things that smart students do. It's actually a good thing if a kid thinks that they're smart. It's great, right? But if a kid thinks they're bad at school and they oh, I can't do this, I can't score this, I can't score this grades, I can just never understand this. I'm not like other kids. I'm just slow. I have problems. Well, oftentimes that is what becomes reality, right? If you think you're such a way, then it's just going to end up happening, right? If you think that you can, never win a competition, you will subconsciously not try to put in any effort in order to win a competition, right? Same when it comes to kids. If your child thinks that, they're pretty bad at academics, they will subconsciously do things that, is related to being bad at school, bad at academics. They will not do homework, they will procrastinate, they will get on their phone all the time to distract themselves from the actual problem that's right in front of them. And they will do so many things. They will do everything that isn't improving, right? That isn't improving themselves, right? So yeah, being when kids think like that, I think that you should often call it out immediately, right? Of call it out immediately and sort it, right? Because this thing is not good at all, right? It's not good when it comes to long term, right? Okay, if your child thinks that they're bad at school for the current time being, for the current time period, and let's say it's GCSE, right? It's fine, right? But if you let them continue to think that, hey, I'm bad at school, I'm bad at school, I'm bad at school, it's gonna compound. Just like how doing a lot of practice questions can compound into scoring good grades, thinking you're bad at school can compound into you flopping in academics entirely, right? And when you do that, you lose out on a lot of opportunities, right? I know there are a lot of ways to be successful, and academics is not the only route. I'm very aware of that. But, you know, it would be a lie to say that scoring good grades will not open doors, because it will, right? Because scoring good grades just shows that you are a student who's willing to put in the work and effort in order to get something, right? And in this case, it's grades. So yeah, I think that if you see your child do this, and if you see your child label themselves, you should try to stop that immediately. I think that's worse than scoring bad marks. I think if your child labels themselves, I think that is actually worse than scoring bad marks, because scoring bad marks can be fixed by technique and intervention, and so many in consulting with the right people, it can be fixed, right? It's not a permanent thing, right? No student will stay at D forever. They will improve, right? It's just a matter of when, whether it takes 2 weeks, 1 month, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, they are bound to improve, right? It's guaranteed. But when a student thinks that they are bad at school, it stays for a very long time, right? And the worst thing that could happen is that it stays all the way until university and it leaks into their life, Think, I'm bad at school, I can't perform. Then other areas in life, it's going to get affected as well, right? When they grow up, they're going to be like, I can't put in effort for this, I can't do this, I can't put in effort for family, I can't put in effort for my friends, so to prevent things bursting in the long term, just when you see your child you know thinking that they are bad, or if you just feel, I mean, not see, if you feel that your child kind of labels themselves internally, have a talk with them and be like, hey, there's no such thing as bad at school. It's just that you haven't put in enough effort, right? School isn't rocket science. GCSE, A levels, IBDP, these things aren't rocket science, right? I am so confident because I come from evidence. I've actually scored good grades for GCSEs, right? And I have made kids score good grades for GCSEs and A levels and so on and so forth, right? So I know what I'm talking about. If you want to be good at school, just put in the effort, right? Put in the effort, attend your classes, do your homework, ask questions when you don't know, do extra questions in your free time, attend your classes, attend your tutoring sessions, and boom, you are done. You get grades, right? So there's this label is almost, there's no point for having a label, because being bad at school can be fixed, right? So why put a label on yourself? It just makes things worse.
Yeah. That is very, very good advice. In fact, another word for label is brand.
Yeah,
So that
that's
is
right.
why it's so important to build a good personal brand. Help your child because they're still young. They might not know how to do it themselves. Help your child build a very good personal brand that he knows himself by, and then other people recognize him by. Because when the label is wrong, you see, they will behave based on their label, and other people will recognize them based on that label. And then it's just going to exacerbate and build and build and build in the wrong direction over time.
Spot
So
on. I
it's
truly
great.
agree. I agree.
Exactly. So help them build a great personal brand from the onset when they are young. And then slowly they are being recognized by other people, this good personal brand. And then it builds from good to great to wonderful to the greatest absolute ultimate. Right. So this is a very, very fruitful session. I have one last question.
Go ahead.
And uh, this is slightly sensitive. What do parents usually realize when it's a little bit too late? But obviously, never too late for Monish, of course, he can always help. But what would be the thing that they realize when it is almost too late?
So I can state the obvious over here. There's 2 ways to go about this, 2 to 3 ways to go about this. I can state the obvious here. If your child is a month away from exam and they only did like, you know, maybe 4 past year papers, or they only did 20% of their homework for the entire year, well, yes, it is too late to score good grades if that's what you want for your child, right? It is too late because getting good grades just takes repetition and boring work, right? And students don't do it because doing boring work sucks, right? But doing the boring work is what, that is what is going to get you your results, right? Doing papers and attending sessions is so boring, but hey, guess what? It works, right? It's been proven, right? I mean, not just me, but plenty of other kids have showed that if you put in the work and you do your papers and you attend your sessions, you will score good grades, right? It's impossible not to. So if you see your child doing little to no practice and they're 1 month away from exam and you want good grades, then yeah, I think it's time to be a bit realistic. And it's not the end of the world. Retakes are possible and things like that. But yeah, that's a bit too late to fix, unless they do a 20-day, like a 1 month intensive or something like that. Well, that is possible, right? That is very possible. Anything is possible. It just depends on the time that you're allowing yourself to, achieve a goal, right? If you want to go to Harvard, for example, and you start at, okay, let's not use Harvard. Okay, for example, if you want to go to a top university, let's say you want to study at the London School of Economics and Political Science. I do have some people on my team who study at the London School of Economics and Political Science. So, I know what I'm saying. These guys, they have started taking their academics seriously and they have been consistent right from the get-go. They have been consistent since year 10, right? They've been consistent since grade 10. So, for them it's pretty realistic to get into LSE, right? They've technically, kind of mentally allowed themselves a 5-year time horizon to get into LSE, right? Like if you want to get into a top school, it's just that you need to allow yourself time. You need to start preparing from this, from the beginning, right? You can't be a 4 years late and be like, okay, I have 6 months, I want to get into a top 20 university in the world, what do I have to do? No, you got to be realistic about it. If you want big things, you got to allow yourself to have huge amount of time, right? If you want big things, you got to allow yourself to have big time, right? A lot of time to achieve these things. And one more thing that parents realize when it's too late is if students and children only learn content, right? If they have been memorizing for the sake of it, and if they've been taking notes for the sake of it, it's too late to expect something different of them, right? If they have been scoring, for example, C's and D's, and all they've been doing is just very passive stuff, you know, passive stuff. I mean, when I say passive, I mean things that actually, study techniques that don't actually move knowledge into your head, such as rereading, note taking, highlighting, summarizing. These things actually don't help. And so if you see your child doing them, please stop them. I believe in more active stuff. So if your child does more passive stuff, things where it doesn't actually engage their brain, do not expect different outcomes from them, right? You can't expect someone to do the same thing and achieve a different outcome. In order to achieve a different outcome, you got to do a different thing, right? You got to try a new method, right? So yeah, it's too late if you want your child to score in flying colors, but they've been doing the same thing that does not work, right? If they've been doing method A, for example, which is just coming back from school, revising for like half an hour, and when you tell them to taking notes for the sake of it, summarizing, highlighting in your textbook, making your notes pretty and things like that. And they have been scoring C's and average grades for their year. And by the way, C is not a terrible grade. I am just I'm a very results oriented person. I think that's the disadvantage on my side. I am very results oriented, so all I care about is I care about numbers, I care about facts and figures. I care about in academics, like I guess in academics it would be um grades, right? In my side of things it would be, okay, what numbers are we doing, right? So yeah, I care about grades a lot. So you can't coming back to parents, you can't expect your child to score flying colors if they've been doing things that don't work, right? And parents also realize that you know, they realize the fact that their kid doesn't have a correct foundation a bit too late as well, right? When I say correct foundation, the kids don't know, how to use proper revision techniques, how to um, handle exam pressure, right? Because exam pressure is very different to handling exam pressure is a whole nother skill. And I can safely say that 90% of students do not know how to take exams. No students do exam practice at home. And no students actually put themselves under timed practice and exam conditions. So when I say exam conditions, I'm talking about putting your phone away, just having your paper in front of you. No one actually practices like that at home, right? And these are all foundational skills, right? Learning how to take exams. So if your child doesn't have any of the skills and they've just been learning the subjects, it's a bit too late for them to achieve anything. They can achieve good things, but not great things, if that makes sense, right? Not the top of the top, not the best of the best. Yes, they can come off the B, maybe, but if your child wants to score an A and you want your child to score an A and above, you got to do different things, right? If you want to score exceptional results, you have to be the exception, right? And being the exception does not really mean that it's a good thing, right? If you want exceptional things, you just have to be the exception, and being an exception can be weird, right? It can be weird for children. It can be weird when their friends see them. For your child, it can be weird for them when their friends see them. Oh, you're studying all the time. Are you a nerd? Are you a nerd? What are you doing? Why are you not hanging out with us? Well, that's actually a good thing because your child is the exception. Your child wants to score good grades, top grades. I'm talking about, let's say, A plus and above, right? 90% plus. That's exceptional. In order to want something exceptional like that, you got to be an exception, right? And being an exception does not mean you live a great life. It does not mean that you play and hang out with your friends all the time. It actually means that you do something that other people don't. And when we're talking about academics, that just means, putting in more revising hours and things like that. So yeah, um, if your child doesn't have the foundational skills, it's like building a building where the bricks aren't placed properly. Everything will fall apart. It's just a matter of when.
That is straight talking from Monesh himself. And I agree on that. Yes, it is straight talk, but I think it is necessary straight talk. We cannot expect our children also to be magic. They're not magic. They're human beings,
For sure.
just like
I
us.
agree.
Yeah. Yeah. But I want to give some hope. Consider this for the mummies and daddies. If you do feel that you may be at the too late stage, there is also having the child repeat. Do another year. Just repeat. In the larger scheme of things at my age, I can tell you 1, 2 years, nothing. Nothing. If
Absolutely.
it means nothing. If it is the difference between getting FU and not being able to enter a good university, if the difference between is that and being able to enter an Ivy League, gosh, what is 1 year? What is 2 years to get
Exactly.
your grades better? When you apply for a job, the interviewer asks you, what happened here? Why you repeat 1 year? You say, well, I repeated 1 year because I wanted to be excellent. I want to be excellent so that I can be the best your organization can have, that I'm someone who will take the effort and the time to be excellent. Okay, so it's not without hope. Yes, it might be too late for that year, but consider something different, as Monish said. If you want to be exceptional, then be the exception. Do something different from the usual person, right? So, any closing words of encouragement, Monish?
So final words from me. Scoring good grades or getting your child to take charge of their own education and take responsibility for themselves when it comes to academics is not difficult. You just have to get what they want in life and work backwards from there, right? And
Yeah.
oftentimes this these things work, right? And give them, reward them, right? Reward them for small things, right? Like just like how me and Diane talking about stickers. I wish someone told me when I was studying, hey, I'll get you the latest PlayStation, but you should just score 10 A stars. I would have scored 11 A stars. Okay. I would do anything just to get that PlayStation, right? I mean, I'm willing to do this. I'm willing to do this for kids. So I think it's fine. But also try to reward your child. It doesn't have to be big, it doesn't have to be like something crazy, just weekly rewards, where get this done, get that done, do this practice papers, attend your classes properly, attend your sessions properly, give feedback to your tutors, talk to your tutors, just do all the good things that will lead to a good grade. And hey, we'll go for your favorite lunch at the end of the week, right? I'll buy you pizza. We'll have pizza together and watch movies. We'll go to the cinema together. Something small like that, right? Is will still be very appreciated by students, right? They don't need big things, right? You can choose to give them big things. I mean, if you have if you have the resources to, then yeah, sure, go ahead, give them a big reward, right? They will feel very good for earning something that they worked hard for, right? So yeah, try to spike your child's dopamine by giving them rewards for doing good things. That's what I've been implementing with some of my kids, and it's very new actually, the system that I've brought upon, and it's working with wonders. So I think it's a technique that you all should try. And don't give up. Don't give up with your child, because your anything can be achievable. It's just a matter of time, right? How much time horizon you are willing to give your child towards that goal. Some children just need more time, so be it. Every child is different. There's no race, there's no competition, right? Every child is different, every child is unique. So stop treating children like they're the same, right? They're not. They're different. You got to give them an approach that works for them. That's all from me. Just to summarize, give your child, some dopamine spikes here and there for doing good things, and future pace them, right? Get their goal and work backwards from that. And if you do these two things, ultimately, I think that um, children will perform at an exceptional rate, right? Grades are just a result of grades are an outcome of effort, right? You put in effort, you get good stuff, right? It doesn't matter. It can be in any field, right? So get your child to learn how to study, very importantly. Um, Learn how to take exams, learn how to take responsibility of their education. They will take responsibility of their education once they know the why, right? And after, okay, let me give you a sequence, right? Get them to know the why, right? Work from the goal, get their goal and work backwards. Do this first, right? And by doing this, they will become responsible of their own education. Secondly, you got to equip them with the knowledge of how to study. Somehow, it doesn't matter if you're getting someone for it, you're hiring someone for it, or you're approaching, consulting with someone for it, or it doesn't matter if you show them yourself, or if it doesn't matter if you tell them to go to do their own research. Just get them to know how to study, because it's a skill that will help them for life, right? I know the first 5 chapters of biology by heart for my GCSEs until today, because I did a lot of flashcards back then. I learned how to study, right? Flashcards is one of the good ways. So flashcards is just many techniques under that falls under how to study. So yeah, equipping your child with how to study, and thirdly, how to take exams, right? Get these 3 things in place, and then tell your child, okay, now you can go into your subjects, right? Now you can start learning content. Now you can start covering your chapters. And if all of this is done, that's how good grades just come. They just fall into your lap, your child's lap, because you've done all the steps, you know, that is required to score good grades. And scoring good grades usually means that your child's confidence will spike. And when your child has high confidence, they just perform in every aspect of their life, not just academics.
Thank you, Monish. That very, very good advice. And I think this has been a very good session, not only for people with children, but also for educators, for your students as well, for teachers and all that. Very, very important. And I still really, really like that you mentioned dopamine, because again, this is a generation that thrives on dopamine. So so it's important to know how to generate the dopamine, and also to help the child be able to generate their own dopamine, right? So if you want to ask any questions, you can private message the platform that is hosting that this is hosted on.